Hello everyone, it's been a little bit since my last video. I am back, and this time we're actually going to talk about something that a viewer asked me to do. We're going to talk about some of my recommendations for books to read in what is now known as Legends in the Star Wars universe. These books used to be part of the old expanded universe, sort of the stories that came before, after, during the timeline of the films, before, Disney took over and just kiboshed the whole thing. Excuse me. So, a couple of things. This is not at all going to be an expansive list. I have not read all of Legends material. This is just going to be books that I personally have read and enjoyed. I don't really think there's that many that I've tried and didn't care for. There's at least one I can think of off the top of my head, but we'll get to that later. So this isn't going to cover anything I haven't read, and also this is going to be strictly novels. I'm not covering anything comic-related, game-related, although one of the books does. We'll get to that one. So if I don't cover, like, your favorite book or anything, probably haven't read it. Like, for instance, even though I just started this one recently, I can't talk about Death Troopers by Joe Schreiber. I will talk about his other Star Wars zombie book, but I can't talk about Death Troopers because I've read like 2 chapters. So, can't exactly talk about a book I haven't read yet. Anyway, in no particular order, we're going to start out with the standalone novels, and then we'll sort of get into the bigger sort of series, trilogies, that whole spiel. So, starting again, no particular order, we have Dark Lord, The Rise of Darth Vader by James Luceno. I really like anything James Luceno does in the Star Wars universe. I don't think he's written a book in either Legends or canon that I haven't enjoyed. And I'm a sucker for Darth Vader. I'm simple in that regard. I'm not, some certain YouTubers who, if it doesn't have, Darth Vader, then it's garbage, or I'm not gonna, kiss the feet of anything that has Darth Vader. But I do like me some Darth Vader. This takes place pretty much immediately after, not immediately, but shortly after, Revenge of the Sith. It's during the early days of the Empire, and, excuse me. It features Darth Vader, sort of. It's been a while since I've read this. I kind of need to do a once over with the blurb back here. It does follow Darth Vader and some of the Jedi Knights that have eluded Order 66. Vader's sort of quest to hunt down any remnants of the Jedi. And what really intrigues me is we get a look at Vader while he's still sort of in that transitioning point between Anakin and Vader. Excuse me. I'm really gassy this morning. I need to go downstairs and get my Pepsi or something. We get a glimpse of inside his head while he's still in that sort of early stages of being Darth Vader, and just kind of the things that he's dealing with mentally, physically, that sort of thing. Overall, really, really like this book. I'm going to try and do these quick because, Jesus H, I'm staring at a lot of books. This might be a long video, guys. Next, we have the novelization of Star Wars The Force Unleashed. Now, if you haven't played this game, and you are able to, I highly, highly recommend it. It is one of the best Star Wars games I have ever played. It follows the story of Starkiller, Darth Vader's secret apprentice, and the missions that Vader sends him out hunting down the Jedi, and the things that happen to Starkiller along his journey. If I recall correctly, we do get some scenes that aren't in the game, if I'm remembering right. Like, one of the Jedi that you hunt down, you see how he sort of, like, fashioned his own version of the Jedi High Council. It does follow the game pretty well, like, pretty faithfully. Like I said, it's a novelization. So, if you aren't able to get a hold of the game, and you somehow haven't experienced this, or you just want to learn more about, get inside the mind of Starkiller more, recommend this. Next, we have a book that takes place shortly before Revenge of the Sith, and that would be Labyrinth of Evil, again, by James Luceno. In this novel, Anakin and Obi-Wan are sent on a quest to basically track down Darth Sidious, because in an attempt to capture Nute Gunray, they find his little hologram. I'm probably thinking the word holographic because I just sorted my girlfriend's giant stack of Pokemon cards the other day, because I'm a good boyfriend like that. Anyway, if I'm not too lazy to edit that out, then that's going to get cut. I'm probably going to be too lazy. Anyway, they get a hold of his hologram chair, and they basically find out that there is someone else, sort of, up in the Separatist hierarchy, and they try to track down this person, Darth Sidious. And it follows their investigation, what Sidious does to try and stay one step ahead of the Jedi, and this leads directly into the film Revenge of the Sith. It does kind of contradict a bit the old 2D micro-series of Clone Wars as to what Anakin and Obi-Wan were doing right before Revenge of the Sith. So, which, again, as I went over in my canon video, things didn't always line up in the expanded universe. But either way, still a very good book. Highly recommend. Almost all of these are going to be highly recommends because, I like them. Not all of them, but some of them I really, really enjoy. Like the next two, for instance. Here we have one that I went over a lot when talking about the Acolyte. And that is Darth Plagueis, again, by James Luceno. Like I said, I really like when James Luceno does Star Wars stuff. You should probably Google him and look up his other, non-Star Wars fiction. You should probably do that at some point. I like the guy so much. Anyway, this follows the story of young Palpatine during his time as Plagueis' apprentice. Excuse me. From the time where Plagueis killed his own master, Darth Tenebrous, covering their time to covering Plagueis finding Palpatine, their time together, their attempt to create a Force being that they could use as a weapon for the dark side. Plagueis actually may have met somebody, kind of off-screen away from the films. Wonder who that could be. Read the book to find out. Or you can probably guess it. It's not that hard to figure out. And ultimately, this isn't a spoiler for the book if you've seen Revenge of the Sith. And ultimately, Plagueis' death at the hands of Palpatine. if there were any of these books that I am going to say absolutely go out and read, Plagueis is definitely on there. My mind, still canon. Of course, like I said, I'm building my own canon at some point. The next book I want to talk about is the book Revan by Drew Karpyshyn. I really should be kind of saying who these other books are by. Oh, well, I think it's all been James Luceno except for The Force Unleashed, which is done by Sean Williams. So, the book Revan covers the story of Darth Revan in between KOTOR's 1 and 2, and also post-KOTOR 2. For those of you who don't know what I'm saying by that acronym, I'm saying Knights of the Old Republic, the video games. It covers the story of what Revan did between those games and what happened to both Revan and Meetra Surik, the character you play as in KOTOR 2, after that game. I love Darth Revan. I love his story. I very much wish we could have gotten, more of him. I wish that damn KOTOR remake would actually be made. But, Star Wars fans can't have nice things. Unfortunately. Maybe one day. Until then, it's pretty much... No, it is on some of the newer platforms. I think it's on Switch, and you can get it on Xbox via backwards compatibility. I don't think it's on PlayStation. I don't think. I could be wrong. I've never looked. But anyway, if you want to learn more about Revan, highly, highly recommend this book. There are other books by Drew Karpyshyn. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I'm probably not. But there are other books by him that I will bring up later that I also enjoy. Next, we have Red Harvest by Joe Schreiber. This is I believe this was his second, basically, zombie book in the Star Wars universe. To my knowledge, there's only really 2 zombie books in, in the expanded universe. Both done by him. The first being Death Troopers, which, again, still reading, so can't talk about. But I did read this one. It takes place during the Old Republic, so, thousands of years before the main Star Wars story. One thing I will point out that's a little nitpick, but I get it just because the genre of the story that he's telling. While there are, obviously lightsaber weapons, as you can see on the cover here, and the outbreak does happen at a Sith Academy, there's still a lot of, bodily fluids and wounds, leaking them, even after, lightsaber strikes. Which, we all know lightsabers are supposed to cauterize wounds. But as proven in even A New Hope, they don't always do. It's a horror book. It's a zombie book. Go with it. Unless that kind of thing annoys you, and in which case, sorry, not gonna be for you. But I did enjoy that while I read it. Small side thing. This isn't obviously EU. It's a novelization. But I'm gonna go ahead and plug it anyway, just because I really, really enjoyed this book when I read it as a child. I was like a teen. How old was I when Revenge of the Sith came out? Anyway, it's the Revenge of the Sith novelization by Matthew Stover. I really like this novelization. I think it gives way more insight into, the characters' heads during, this film. There's even times where, oh, excuse me. Anyway, I just think it does a brilliant job of adding an extra layer of depth to the Revenge of the Sith film, which I already really enjoy and think is a great film, one of the best of the George Lucas films. So anyway, not part of Legends, but definitely go give this a read. Alright, and we are out of the standalone books. Like I said again, we're only covering books that I have read. So if I missed anything, or if y'all have recommendations for me about books that I am not going to talk about in this video, drop them in the comments. I would love to read more old Legend stuff. Heck, some of it's been a lot better than what we've been getting, so... if there's books that I don't bring up that you think I should read, just based off what you're going to see here, drop them in the comments. Please do. I'm always happy to read more Star Wars stuff, especially if it's good. And with that in mind, let's go back to one of the first expanded universe material, and that is the Thrawn trilogy, starting with Heir to the Empire by Timothy Zahn, followed by Dark Force Rising, and then The Last Command. These three books were basically, at the time, historically, it's like Return of the Jedi's out, Star Wars is done, there's nothing else until Timothy Zahn comes out with a story that continues after Return of the Jedi, following our favorite heroes, Luke, Han, Leia, Chewbacca, Lando, R2-D2, C-3PO, and establishes some pretty integral characters to Legends and now canon. This is the book where we get one of the most infamous villains in Star Wars lore, Grand Admiral Thrawn, which is the blue-skinned, red-eyed character from Star Wars Rebels and Ahsoka. This is the book trilogy where Leia has her twins, Jaina and Jacen. This is where Luke meets Mara Jade, which, if you know anything about Legends, you know she's pretty damn important. Like I believe I mentioned in my canon video, some of the material in this deviates heavily from what George Lucas would later do, but Zahn wrote these details down first before George had a chance to make the prequels. So, yeah, take that as you will. I kind of just ignored them when they came up, so take it as you will. Basically, the plot is the rebels are still trying to bring the galaxy together and deal with the Imperial remnant, because, you know, the army, the Empire wasn't just defeated with the destruction of the second Death Star and the death of the Emperor and Vader. Things continued after that, both in Legends and canon. So, and the Empire seems to be on a winning streak thanks to the efforts of a mysterious Grand Admiral. Thrawn's awesome. He's one of my favorite villains. Glad to see him in canon. Can't wait to see what Jon and Dave do with him in the Mandoverse. And can't wait for the Heir to the Empire film. That's not what Dave's calling his movie that's going to end all the Mando stuff. That's just what I'm calling it until we actually get a name for it. Should really have grabbed a drink. So I'm talking now for going on 20 minutes. Anyway, let's jump far back in time and talk about a trilogy that I heavily recommend. I fucking love this trilogy. And it is the Darth Bane trilogy by Drew Karpyshyn, starting with Path of Destruction, Rule of Two, and then Dynasty of Evil. This trilogy follows Darth Bane and from the time that he is taken into the Sith Academy, his fallout with the Sith Academy, his manipulation to get the Sith to basically wipe themselves out, and his establishment of the Rule of Two, and the subsequent books follow him and his apprentice, Darth Zana. Wonderful exploration of the dark side. If you love dark side stories, if you love the Sith, and you haven't read this trilogy, what the hell is wrong with you? Go out and read it. They're damn good. Like, I'd say this is probably up there in my... If I'm allowed to count a trilogy as one, this is probably up there in my top 10 favorite Star Wars reads. If I can, count an entire trilogy as top 10. But then again, I'd be making the list, so I make the rules. Alright, that's the last of the trilogies, and now we're going to be going on to the bigger series. Starting with the Republic Commando quadrilogy? Was that 4? Yeah, I think that's 4. By Karen Traviss. And it starts with Hard Contact, 000, True Colors, and then finally, Order 66. These novels follow the story of the titular Republic Commandos that were introduced via the Republic Commando video game, which I have tried, did not get far in, mean to go back and finish that one day. That game I think you can get on pretty much everything current. In fact, I think there's a sort of remastered version on the PlayStation. I think it's the same game, it's just prettier. Yeah, PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo Switch. Don't buy it on the Switch, for the love of God. Nothing third-party works on Switch. Freaking first-party barely works. Anyway, it follows... The first book starts off with Omega Squad, then the following books go into both Omega and Delta Squads. It follows Clone Commandos on, Spec Ops missions, and we even get a little bit of a side story involving a Jedi and a clone trooper, which was not expecting that. There was going to be a follow-up series to this, and in fact, there was one book in that follow-up series called Imperial Commando, 501st, where some of the commandos become part of what became Vader's Fist, like his own, hand-picked troops. I tried reading Imperial Commando. I didn't care for it personally. That's just me. It was kind of boring to me, which is weird considering it's these are commando units. You'd think that they'd be pretty fun books to read. I don't know. There was just something about Imperial Commando that I didn't care for. But I do recommend this quadrilogy. Oh boy, okay, so one of the last two series that we're going to cover, they kind of have to be covered one and then the other, while they don't follow each other strictly back to back, because I think there is some books in between. You can go on Wikipedia and find a Legends timeline of novels, or if you actually buy a Legends book, there is a handy-dandy center. There's a handy-dandy novels timeline right at the start. So you have a list of books for yourself to find and put them in any order. Or not any order, but put them in order. Oh, I guess it's just a trilogy that's between these two series. The Morena. But I also have not read that trilogy, so I ain't gonna talk about it. It's called the Darkness Trilogy. Okay. Anyway, I'll get to that at some point. So, the first series that we're going to go over is a 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 book series. It is the New Jedi Order, and it covers the events of what became known as the Yuuzhan Vong War, or just the Vong War. We're going to go down the list. We're going to be here a minute. And actually, let me fix my... that might be a little too bright, but at least now I don't look like I'm sitting in perpetual darkness. Also, my co-host is missing. Well, gonna have to find him later. Hopefully he's, not being too mischievous. The New Jedi Order, starting with Vector Prime by R.A. Salvatore. Then Dark Tide Onslaught by Michael A. Stackpole. Dark Tide Ruin by Michael A. Stackpole. Agents Chaos 1, Hero's Trial by James Luceno. Agent Chaos 2, Jedi Eclipse by James Luceno. Balance Point by Kathy Tyers? Tiers? I don't know how to pronounce that. Edge of Victory 1, Conquest by Greg Keyes. Edge of Victory 2, Rebirth by Greg Keyes. That light is blowing out these covers a little bit. Total professional, I know. Star by Troy Denning, which is a chunky boy. Dark Journey by Elaine Cunningham. There's a lot of different authors in this one series, if you can believe it. 19 books long. Enemy Lines 1, Rebel Dream by Aaron Alston. Enemy Lines 2, Rebel Stand by Aaron Alston. Traitor by Matthew Stover. Destiny's Way by Walter John Williams. Sadly not the musician. Force Heretic 1, Remnant by Sean Williams and Shane Dix. Force Heretic 2, Refugee by Sean Williams and Shane Dix. Force Heretic 3, Reunion by Sean Williams and Shane Dix. The Final Prophecy by Greg Keyes. And then finally, Unifying Force by James Luceno. This giant chunker of a series follows, Luke, Han, Leia, all those people. You know these people. Mara Jade, who by this point, spoiler alert for anybody that doesn't know this, who by this point is Luke Skywalker's wife. And the two twins, Jaina and Jason, who are now, older, and also their younger brother, Anakin Solo. This series really kind of, made a name for itself for a, kind of a controversial and polarizing decision. A character death that happens in book 1. So, yeah. And then, it follows the very long story of an invasion of the Star Wars galaxy by a species known as the Yuuzhan Vong. A species of creatures that the Force has no effect on. And they cannot be felt in the Force. They're kind of like the ultimate, Force, they basically are, the answer to the Force. Because at this point, there's, a whole new Jedi Order that Luke and Mara and other characters have established. And it covers the beginning of the invasion all the way to the end of the war. Oh man, it would take a lot to describe the Yuzong Vong, but basically they're anti-technology. They really like using bioorganism stuff in their weapons, ships, and they're really into pain and torture. The series is very beefy. Some of the books, especially, are kind of chonky. This series did, at least for me, kind of drag a bit when I first read it. So your mileage may vary on that one. Some of the events in the books are necessary for the next big series to follow up after that, which we'll get to in a moment. So some of the things that happen, you kind of sort of need to know. They do cover it in the other series. Like, they do cover some of the things. But it does set up some of the stuff that you read about in Legacy of the Force. So while I can't give this one a glowing recommendation, just because it is kind of so frigging long and kind of drags a bit, I do still think that they're an enjoyable read, and they are sort of like one of the bigger conflicts that happen in the post-Return of the Jedi era. And like I said, they set up for the last series that I am going to talk about. The last series that I'm going to talk about being the Legacy of the Force. Now, I'm not done with Legacy of the Force. I'm going to finish it, but I still have 2 books left. I do kind of vaguely know how the series ends, but I'm not completely there yet. So, the Legacy of the Force is a 9-book series alternating between 3 different authors, beginning with Betrayal by Aaron Alston, Bloodlines by Karen Traviss. Yeah, get excited. Boba Fett. Boba Fett shows up a few times in this series. Tempest by Troy Denning. Exile by Aaron Alston. Sacrifice by Karen Traviss. Inferno by Troy Denning. Fury by Aaron Alston, this is the latest one that I have read. So these last 2 I still have to get to, as evidenced by the bookmark you're about to see. Revelation by Karen Traviss. Shout out to my Christopher Paolini bookmark. And then finally, Invincible by Troy Denning. This series covers... Spoilers. This series covers the fall to the dark side of Jacen Solo. Him becoming a Sith Lord, him attempting to basically take over the galaxy, but not strictly for, power and death to the Jedi and all these things that Palpatine tried to do. He's sort of going the Vader way about it and trying to bring peace to the galaxy. Because the galaxy is on the verge of yet another civil war by the time Legacy of the Force starts. And Jacen is convinced that him becoming a Sith, taking power, would help lead to a better universe. And there are some serious events. Granted, there's not really a whole lot past this in terms of the post-Return of the Jedi timeline. There's one more major series that I have not read yet, the Fate of the Jedi series. Unfortunately, we were getting close to the point where Disney would buy Lucasfilm and sort of, scrap everything, so there wasn't a whole lot to come after this in terms of timeline. But there are some major story and character beats that occur in this series. a lot of people online have said this is what they kind of wish the sequel films had been based on. And again, caveat, have not finished it, but I kind of agree with them. I've been loving this series so far. And yeah, I kind of wish this is what... excuse me. I kind of wish this is what the sequel films had been. There's definitely some... It definitely, in my mind, respects the characters a lot more. You still get some of the stuff that even happens in the sequels. Particularly your fight between your light side character and your dark side character. Not going to give away who that is. You can probably guess the dark side one. Jason Solo was basically the prototype Ben Solo from, you know, the sequel films. Although, I like Jason more. Don't get me wrong, I did like Kylo Ren. I think he's the best part of those films. But I just feel like they did Jason a lot better. But, you know, nine books. Actually, a lot more since Jason, you know, has been around since the fall of the Empire. But, you know, 9 books covering his time as a Sith versus, you know, 3 movies that I do not feel like were properly planned. I'm sure I'm going to get hate in the comments for that if anybody watches these. If you like those films, more power to you. I'm really glad you did. I wish I did. But I didn't. Anyway. So, that's pretty much all I've got. I do recommend Legacy of the Forest, at least the first 7. I'm certain as I read more Legends books, because I do have a few more stashed somewhere. Let me see if I can actually find those real quick. Like I said, I do have Death Troopers that I have started. You're going to see more of my background. Let me see if I can go find those books, actually. Oh, I'm old. If I fall and die, hopefully somebody uploads this. Anyway, I do got a stack here of more books that I'm going to read. You probably watched all of that because I think I just seen myself in the corner there. Jesus Christ. Oh, I bet that's going to be fun to see. Oh, damnation. So, I have that I still have yet to read. The Mandalorian, or The Bounty Hunter Wars, Book 1 by K.W. Jeter, which I believe features the return of Boba Fett after Return of the Jedi. Old Republic, Fatal Alliance by Sean Williams. Old Republic, Annihilation by Drew Karpyshyn. Old Republic, Deceived by Paul S. Kemp. 2 of the Fate of the Jedi books. They are not in order, but this is book 1. Outcast by Aaron Alston. I have another one that I don't know where in the order this is, but Allies by Christy Golden. I got Allies for cheap, so, but, you know, I don't want to get the whole series in case I'm not feeling the Fate of the Jedi books. Then we have the Jedi Academy trilogy, which I got as a box set by Kevin J. Anderson, Jedi Search, Dark Apprentice, and Champions of the Force, which really just kind of, you know, really goes into Luke building his Jedi Order. And then The Hand of Thrawn duology by Timothy Zahn, Spectre of the Past, and Vision of the Future. So I do have those books that I want to read, so maybe there will be a part 2 to this. Eventually, down the line, once I read more. And like I said, if you guys got any recommendations in any recommendations for books I haven't talked about, throw them in the comments, please. I am more than happy to keep checking out Star Wars old EU/Legends material, because some of this is some really good shit. Anyway, I think this video is going to be like half hour long, somewhere in there, somewhere around there. So y'all have fun. May the Force be with you, and I'll see you next time.